Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamu alaikum and welcome to Sports Extra. I'm your host Ahmed Dawaz with the latest roundup of sports today. Now, football is of course something that we all love and we've all followed it as well. But when it comes to the Premier League, we tend to have that extra bit of excitement. Now, the new season of the English Premier League came to a spectacular end where once again it was not just Manchester that was blue, but it was the entire Premier League that turned blue as well, as Manchester City once again were crowned champions of the current Premier League season. It was an absolute, I think, galore when it comes to the way City have played. They look like, I think it won't be embarrassing to say. I think you should accept the facts now that City are one of the best Premier League sides that we're seeing in this modern era. In fact, the best football club that we're seeing in this modern era of football, and their dominance continues. So Pep Guardiola, the management, the players, everybody involved, I think they've all ticked all the boxes. But despite that, we've also got some honorable mentions, some notable performances. Arsenal has been brilliant this season. Credit to them. Very, very unfortunate that they couldn't lift the title. They were ever so close once again for a second consecutive year. But they've had a spectacular campaign and they should really be proud of themselves. And obviously, I think going into the next season, they'll be really, really happy. Of course, we'll talk about the relegations as well. Certain teams who have been relegated, who is coming up as well. So all the news regarding the Premier League will be on the show, and we'll analyze City's dominance, why they've been so successful in the modern day football. We'll talk about that as well. Time now to introduce our guest. First of all, joining us in studios is sports expert Mr. Malik Usman. Assalamu alaikum. How are you?
Walaikum assalam. I'm doing well.
Thank you very much for joining us. We've also been joined by sports expert Mr. Ali Mehdi. Assalamu alaikum. How are you, sir?
Walaikum assalam. I'm very well, Ahmed.
Thank you very much for joining us. Now, Usman, I think let's just clearly say that Manchester City's model is something that really needs to be researched upon. The brand of football that they're playing, the bench strength phenomena that they've been able to utilize, simultaneously being in the Champions League, the Premier League, the FA Cups, you can talk about any other tournament. And I think Pep Guardiola's magic has surely worked with them as well. There's a lot of support. We'll come to the administrative side in a bit. But what would you like to highlight about the dominance of Manchester City?
I think Manchester City has been extremely consistent, but it's high time now. You have to give credit to Pep Guardiola. See, you talk a lot about the money, the squad that he's carrying, and he has to win it because he has the strongest team and everything about that. But look, this season cannot be in a similar fashion because Haaland was injured for many games. De Bruyne is usually injured for half the season. Yet he has come up with some good performances, and he has the most consistent side in the past 6-7 seasons. So if you're not going to give credit to him, then who should get the credit? See, there are chopping and changes. Even if he let a player goes, he turns out to be Palmer. So he has a good eye for talent as well. And talking about Foden, he always used to talk about that you have Foden for you. You have a Foden in your academy. He is going to be the future star and everything. See, he has become the Premier League player of the season, and very, very deservingly. See, when Haaland was not there are other players that chip in. See, last year it was Bernardo Silva. This year, you had Foden, and before that you had Gundogan. So this is a team of champions, and there is a belief of invincibility and championness and undefeatableness that creeps into this team from head to toe, and they just think that whatever the situation may be, they are always there to win, and they usually win. See how they lost the Champions League in the previous couple of seasons. Any team would wilt and they would lose a lot of confidence, but here they're always challenging for the bigger titles. They're always there, and they're always extremely consistent. Talking about the Champions League as well, the quarter final between Real and Manchester City, many touted it to be the final before the final, and they were certainly the better team, and penalty shootouts can go anywhere. But certainly they are the best team in the continent, they are the best team in the world, not just best team in England. And one reason for that is consistency in transfer market, consistency in team selection, consistency in tactics. They have various kind of tactics. Now just look at how Guardiola purchases players. Guardiola, he took him as a defender. He's a good attacking defender, but see how he was chipping in with goals. And secondly, that winning mentality. They just don't lose. Look at the run-ins in the last 5-10 games. In the previous 2-3 seasons in the title run, they are the team that stand favorites all the time. Liverpool wilted under pressure not once but twice. Arsenal for these 2 seasons, this season and the previous season, they gifted the title to Manchester City. Manchester City is not the team like Arsenal or Liverpool that is going to wilt under pressure. They somehow enjoy this pressure, and it brings the best out of them.
Absolutely. Ali Mehdi, you've closely followed this dominance from City. I think they've been a side that had been suppressed by the red side of Manchester for ages. But I think that dominance, that paradigm shift when it came, it really, transcended into all forms of football that was being played throughout Europe.
Look, when in 2008, when actually Sheikh Mansour decided to buy the blue side of Manchester, this was the beginning of dominance. I remember in 2008, what happened is they lost 8-1 to Middlesbrough. And, all the City fans, everybody was very upset about that. But then you could see this new dawn began when Sheikh Mansour came and bought. And then it took a few seasons for actually them to buy the right players too, and then they get the managers too. And then in 2012, obviously, when they won their first Premier League title, who can forget that Aguero goal at the end against this QPR, which actually got them the title. Then that was the beginning of this new era of dominance. And ever since then, they've actually managed to win 8 Premier League titles starting from 2012. And ever since then, it's been so difficult to beat them. 2014, obviously they won another title, but the Pellegrini won in 2014, 2012, Mancini too, obviously, who started this new trend. And then from you could say 2018, this new era of dominance has begun, where the Pep Guardiola's won about 6 Premier League titles. And if you look at these 6 Premier League titles, they've won it with consistent ease. Yes, you've had Liverpool amongst the chasing pack, who they've beaten by 1 point each in 2 seasons too. And then obviously the Arsenal over the past 2 seasons too. But otherwise, the one team at the back end of the season who's obviously going to perform very well, it is Manchester City, because Manchester City have that experience. They have Pep Guardiola, who knows these title runs. He's done it in he's done it for Barcelona in Spain, he's done it for Bayern Munich, and then he brings that wealth of experience into Manchester. And like Usman Bhai just mentioned over here, the thing over here is that he's been so good tactics and strategy wise, but it's the transfer dealings which he's been brilliant in. The transfer dealings, he's obviously a lot of supreme players have actually left Manchester City. They've actually left, and then he's replaced them with quality. And then obviously homegrown players have come. Phil Foden is one pure example, about 19 to 20 goals this season, 11 assists, player of the season. When they needed him the most, when Haaland was not firing, when De Bruyne was injured, it was Foden who stepped up to the plate. So rightfully so, he was the player of the season. But at this end of the day, they've, over the past few seasons, Guardiola has actually replaced the old talent with new incoming talent, and they've actually contributed. Not one signing of them has gone astray. Not one signing of them you can consider as a flop, like other teams, challenging for the title. So overall, you have to give a lot of credit to Pep Guardiola. That experience has helped them to win 6 Premier League titles, and the other teams really need to follow this blueprint. Otherwise, I think the dominance will continue for a long time to come.
Well, the impressive thing is that Usman, what we need to study is that there's been a lot of support from the team management. Guardiola has had the liberty to handpick his players. I think when Haaland came, there was a lot of talk about how he's going to adjust to the system, whether the system would adjust to him. But I think they have handled everything so clinically well that, it was like a match made in heaven, and they did not let the system collapse as we've seen with other teams collapsing around star players.
See, you have to give credit to Guardiola once again. Madiba was talking about the tactics he uses and how good he is in the transfer market. That is what I was trying to accentuate as well. See, buying Haaland is just one example. In the previous couple of seasons, he was going with false number 9 after Aguero left, and he gave a good tribute about him that we cannot replace him. And certainly he could have replaced him. He had the wealth, he had that trust from the owners as well, that and Guardiola was a big name in the market as well. He could buy any player and nobody was there in the market to say no to him. But he wanted the players who could understand and execute his strategy. The biggest star in Manchester City is Pep Guardiola. You can see and how he maneuvers the role of all these players. The only star in this team, if there is one, it is Pep Guardiola. And see, once he bought Erling Haaland, Erling Haaland is not a poacher by any means. He's a brilliant striker. He can give a good run for the money to Mbappe as well. And he could be, arguably be one of the best players in the world as well. Certainly one of the best, if not the best. And see how they are using him. Totally number 9. Usually you don't find him coming back to assist the defense. He's usually up front. His role is pretty clear. You have to use your head, you have to use your brilliant left leg, and you have to be there when the ball enters into the D area, in the penalty area. And that is what he's executing. He has a good body balance, he's strong, he's physically very gifted, and he scores lots and lots of goals. And that is one way of dealing with things. And other thing is, Haaland has another quality that he takes defenders along with him. So he's assisting as well. If you look at the previous season, he was all goals. But this season, if he hasn't scored goal, he has taken the defenders along with him. And then there is Alvarez who scores Foden comes into the picture. Once De Bruyne got fit, he was there into the mix as well, and in the end even Guardiola was there in it. So you have to look very deeply how Guardiola goes about things. He is always improving. He is crazy about football. I just remember Ian Robben once talking about that in the middle of the night I got a call from Pep Guardiola when we were in Bayern Munich, and I said, yes boss, what's the reason? And he was talking about, okay, what do you think about this strategy that we can adopt tomorrow? And it was so crazy. It's all about football, and he's so energetic. He puts a lot of energy and life into his tactics, his game, and he's so true to football that success does come chasing after him.
Ali Mehdi, if your argument and what Usman said, I think if you interlink them, the part is that the management's been very supportive of Guardiola. But we continue that. Joining us now on Sports Extra is sports expert Ali Abbas. Assalamu alaikum. How are you, sir?
Walaikum salam, Ahmed. How are you? How's everyone?
I'm very well. Great to hear from you again. What would you like to highlight about the dominance of Manchester City? And in your honest opinion, what has made this model so successful over the years?
I think, listen, Ahmed, like the first thing you put in it is like financial doping, right? I mean, that's something that exists. And I will not waste a lot of time because like my fellow panelist and you're well versed in this topic. But I will say that I agree with what Jurgen Klopp said. You put any manager in the Premier League, you give that manager the funds that Pep Guardiola has, no one other than Pep Guardiola would win 4 titles in a row. So I get it, like it's not ideal, but Pep Guardiola is the only one who could have won 4 titles in a row. Listen, going to the last day again and again, the kind of mentality that the players have, this is something special. So I do feel that maybe in a year or so, Manchester City are going to have to pay for their sins, because no matter what happens, right? If there's a conviction against Manchester City, no one's going to change the past, but it's going to taint their legacy over what they've achieved in the last 6 years. But yes, despite all of that, I will say that the only manager who could have won 4 Premier League titles in a row is Pep Guardiola. You give Jurgen Klopp that amount of money, I don't think he does that, right? And I'm a Liverpool supporter, so you can say that I'm coming from a slightly unbiased avenue. So that's my opinion on this.
Yes, Swan, you'd like to add to that?
Yeah, I think that is extremely true. I completely agree with it, and he has given a good example of Jurgen Klopp, that even if you have given this money to Jurgen Klopp, Turn, Hag, anybody, any manager, I don't think the kind of success Guardiola has brought to Manchester City, any manager could have done that. I agree.
Ali Mehdi, the fact that where I mentioned is that, Ali Mehdi, you can point out what Ali Abbas said, you can elaborate on that as well. But like I said, that you really need a lot of support from the administrative side of any football club, something that many clubs have not enjoyed over the years. And that is something that City have been blessed with truly, the synergy between what the manager wants, what they can provide in terms of funding, in terms of players and everything, is something that would make you successful.
The one reason why Manchester City have been very, very successful, obviously on the field they've been very successful, and we can talk about Guardiola, we can talk about tactics, how they've been brilliant Champions League, but it's off the pitch, how they've been, behind the scenes too, the way the club has been run, from the CEO to the chairman to the owners. There's been a very good synergy, there's been very good amongst the hierarchy, there's been no issues. You haven't heard of any controversies. Obviously we're talking about the financial doping, that is a separate story, but there are problems within the club, in the sense that any animosity within the club, you haven't seen that. You haven't seen any problems, hostility within the players or the administration or anything. And when you have such harmony, obviously you're going to perform very well, and that's one major reason is because of Guardiola, because Guardiola understands, he's the one who's actually implemented this system. He's been given a good environment, he has a good relationship with the owners, with the chairman, with everything, and that is very important, because you talk about other teams for that matter. You talk about Manchester United, we know their problems for the past 10 years too. Arsenal have had their problems, Liverpool have also had their problems, but if you look about the consistency in terms of on-field and off-field play, and I'm not bringing in the financial doping and the 115 charges. Other than that, within the club, the most important thing is Manchester City has focused on themselves. Pep Guardiola has just looked towards them. He hasn't looked towards the rivals too. And when you look at yourself and you work towards improving yourself, and when you bring the best out of your players and bring in even better players, then obviously you're going to succeed. And only Guardiola in this day and age could have done it. Something with the great Alex Ferguson couldn't do during his time at Manchester United.
I would like to add something.
Yes, please.
You have to talk about 2-3 things here, which are very important and could be only dealt in Manchester City. First thing, if you buy Grealish for £100 million and you don't give him a very, very consistent run of 90 minutes, most of the clubs would question you, the owners, but nobody questions Guardiola. Secondly, talking about the stardom. If you talk about the stardom, it's not always about Mbappe, Cristiano Ronaldo's and everything. See, he wanted Cristiano Ronaldo, he didn't come, so it's fine. See, if you look at the team of Manchester City, you would hardly have those stars, that Galacticos, because Guardiola is pretty clear about it, that what he wants to buy and what he will get. Thirdly, even the owners are not pressurizing Manchester City management. Management, I'm talking about football management, including Guardiola and the sporting directors and everything. I will give you one example. When at the time of Jose Mourinho, Manchester United bought Pogba. When Mourinho didn't wanted to buy him, actually he did not fit into his plans. It doesn't mean that Pogba wasn't a great player, he was a superstar, but they bought him for a marketing reasons as well. So if you look at Manchester City, they don't go into that marketing thing. See how many great English current players are there in Manchester City side. No, they are all about football, they want to win, they don't care about that off-field business tycoon and all those stuffs and bringing in that
I think
stardom and
plain
glamour.
simple, Manchester United have treated their club as a business, City have treated it as a football club. Plain simple as that. Ali Abbas, this is some real thought that needs to go in as well. One of the upcoming teams where we see that hefty investment, for me personally, is going to be Newcastle United, the way they're going to come up. But there's a lot of talented sides in the world. Usman mentions a very brilliant point that Guardiola and Manchester City have been very clear that this is not just a marketing stunt or about business, it's about the quality of football they play. Every player complements each other.
I agree, and I think Usman Bhai makes another couple of good points. If Jack Grealish is a failed signing, right, in any other club, the manager would be questioned. But the thing that went in the favor of Jack Grealish was the fact that he won the Premier League in his first season. So Guardiola, because there have been quite a few failed transfers. I mean, you look at the likes of Phillips, recently signed from West Ham, or the midfielder that they bought in from Wolves. So like Manchester City have made a few mistakes, and okay, you can get the signing of Phillips, that he's a homegrown talent, so he fits into some sort of quota. So I think Guardiola, the fact that he's won a lot does not bring him into question, because Manchester City have been ruthless the way they sacked Mancini and Pellegrini, who just a year or so before had won the leagues. Manchester City have been ruthless, but Guardiola hasn't really let them do that. I do think personally that Manchester City have done a good job, but we all know that there's illegal stuff over there, right? It's pretty well documented. If there's any philosophy that a team needs to adapt to win titles, it's what Arsenal did under Edu. I think that model is going to be successful. If Newcastle need to look up to that, I mean, which other team? If Everton, if they have a takeover and they get owners in, they need to look at that. The way to be successful in the Premier League and to get up there without breaking a lot of rules, and this FFP system in the English Premier League gets so messed up, Ahmed, that the top six, it's impossible to break into the top six without violating financial fair play. Right, because apparently if you're in the Champions League, then you can spend an X amount of money. But what about teams that are finishing 8th? Even Aston Villa right now, they made it to the Champions League, but they're going to have to sell a couple of players, and God knows where they're going to end up next season. So for any team to get to the top 4 or to the Champions League, or to have a progression which is natural, right, which does not involve the steroids of funds, it's Arsenal. I would still say that Manchester City, it's not ideal. Yes, it's focused on football, but the stuff with the offshore accounts and the secret dealings. I mean, Haaland coming in for maybe 80 million, and the amount that went to his father and his agent. There's so many stories over there which are not ideal. Follow Arsenal, and you are never going to get in trouble with the financial fair play, and you're also going to be a title-winning team.
Well, Usman, you can elaborate because he makes a very good point over it.
I have a slightly different opinion. See, if you're talking about that toxicity of that money market and everything, we can question Manchester City because they're under the cloud of doubt as well. But giving an example that Arsenal is the only example, I think that is pretty harsh on Manchester United, because a club like Manchester United, who has been extremely consistent for a very long time, a couple of years back they haven't been performing well, but they have not been into this trouble and everything, and they have a far more decorated history than Arsenal. Talking about Arsenal's past 2 seasons, they have been good, but talking about their marketing strategy and how the club is being run, I am not a huge fan of them. See, talking about the past 10-15 years, it is always about top 4. I don't think that is a top club in my eyes. If you have to be a top club, you have to win titles. It's all about titles actually. And then talking about the past 2-3 years, there were chances that they could have won the title. They couldn't win because they did not have leaders in their side. Talking about Manchester City, Liverpool's, Manchester United, why they used to win? They had leaders. City have many leaders. Liverpool have a couple of leaders. If you talk about Arsenal, they don't have a world-class leader in their side. You talk about Odegaard and so They are not that world-class leaders, I think, and that was one of the reasons that they couldn't win the title even the previous year and this year as well. So we shouldn't be taking a lot of credit out of Manchester City's success. So winning 6 times in the past 6-7 years, I think that tells a lot. Winning 4 titles in a row, and we're talking much more about off-field than on-field. I think that is a slightly disrespect to Manchester City.
Ali Mehdi, your take on this particular argument that we see progressing as well?
No, I think it's a very good argument which both Ali Abbas and also Usman Bhai put over here. But look, you have to take 2 things into perspective. Manchester City, whatever there has happened off the field and the financial doping in these 150, they've been brilliant on the field. Look, we have to give them credit. The model has been very good. They've done very well over the past few years. You cannot take that away from them. Winning since 2012, winning about 8 titles in the past 12 years. I mean, you have to give them a lot of credit. Exactly. And it's absolutely phenomenal whatever they've done. They've actually bumped out Manchester United the early part since this reign began, and then in the middle, obviously Chelsea was there. They got them out of the way, and since then they've been fighting off against Liverpool, and then most recently Arsenal too. So credits due. A couple of managers, 3 managers have actually brought in about 8 titles, so they're done very well. But you cannot take away that financial doping at the end of the day. I have to be very honest about this. These 115 charges which we talk about, these are very serious allegations, and I've looked very closely into them. It is going to come, and it is going to be presented towards the Premier League. That the Premier League is going to bring this, these charges. And whatever happens, it is obviously going to dent the legacy of Manchester City and Guardiola. Whatever Guardiola will always have this cloud overhead. But the fact of the matter is that until then, you cannot take away what the achievements. They've been absolutely brilliant, and all credit to them. But once that happens, then we can obviously debate. Then we don't know what the charges will titles be taken away, will they be relegated, because there could be some serious implications, there could be some fines. But till then, we have to give credit to Manchester City, and till their decision isn't met, I think right now we should just give all the plaudits to Manchester City.
But who knows that Jose Mourinho would be winning a title with Manchester in the court, and he could be the most successful Manchester United manager in recent history.
Yeah. Well, that's an interesting phase with the Premier League, but I think that burden of responsibility surely relies on the Premier League, that they need to sort this out and make an example of it as well, because obviously we've talked about financial irregularities or something that does not balance the equation. That needs to be done across the board. If you keep on having incidents like this and then you investigate them post tournaments and then strip teams of their titles, I think that's going to take away all the fun and love that
true.
You have for the
titles are won on the ground, not in the courts.
Absolutely. So I think that is something that technically needs to be adjusted. But then again, Ali Abbas, this particular top 4 argument, I think it's a very interesting one. That why is it becoming so normal to be in the top 4 rather than winning a title in the Premier League?
First of all, I would like to say that the 116th charge on Manchester City is the fact that Ali Mehdi has to praise them for 10 to 15 minutes over the last 3 years. I'm sure Ali Mehdi in his lifetime never expected Manchester City to be that successful. So I totally understand. That was on a lighter note. I think, Ahmed, let's be honest, right? I was actually listening to Jamie Carragher and Gary Neville. They were talking to certain fans. The Premier League has now become the Super League. And everyone has sort of resorted to the fact that Manchester City are always going to financially outbeat any other team out there, right? So if there are any team that is making it to the 5th, 6th, 7th position, their talent is going to be taken away from the top 4. And in the top 4, you basically have 2 clubs that are backed or managed by US owners, right? I think Arsenal also have a US owner, and Liverpool are basically owned by FSG. And then if you talk about the number 1 team, Manchester City, that's a state, right? You're basically taking on a state. Qatar is a state which cannot be taken on by different countries, let alone by a football club. So when you look at it financially, people have resorted to the fact that it's okay not to win the league. The reason why everyone is relying on that result in the court so much is to stop the Premier League from becoming either the French league or maybe the German league. Because if those court charges do not put Manchester City or do not give them a sentence, then we can simply accept that the Manchester City are going to be the new PSG and everyone will have to live with it. Because Manchester City, over the last 5 years, what they've done, Ahmed, they have fixed all of their books. So if you evaluate Manchester City over the last 5 years, right, you will not find a single wrongdoing, or at least over the last 4 years. You have to basically look at it from a period of maybe 7 to 8 years. And if Manchester City can get away with it, like you mentioned, people are going to be okay with finishing in the top 4 because no one is really going to be able to challenge them for the title. All of the top talent will end up in Manchester City. So yes, I think until the Premier League gets its basically house in order, this would be the case. Which is why listen, I'm a Liverpool fan, right? My team lost out twice to Manchester City. I do not want those titles. I really don't care. But I do want Manchester City to be punished just so the Premier League, the balance in the Premier League can be restored.
I respect your opinion, but I think your era post Klopp is going to also be a very interesting one as well. It's going to be a very interesting. But I think the paradigm shift that's happened from European football to, let's be honest, it's shifted to the Arab world now. When you talk about that center of balance, it's about time that players are, paid in gold bars rather than money. So anything can happen in that between. I think it's all about the financial models now. You're attracting players based on what incentives you're giving them, the contracts and everything. Me and Ali Mehdi just the other day were talking about whether a certain player wins a contract, wins a Premier League with Arsenal, or makes it to the Champions League, what's going to happen there. So, all these clauses and everything are coming in between. Agents are becoming very smart for players as well.
See, I have a slightly different opinion from all of you. One reason I will give you a situation. See, just forget, if you are one player and you want to join a club, would you go to Real Madrid, Bayern Munich or Manchester City? Certainly, your first two choices would be Bayern Munich and Real Madrid.
I was going to say Manchester City though.
No, let me explain. One of the reasons for that is history.
History,
See,
legacy.
City doesn't have a history.
That's true.
Why would someone go to Manchester City rather than Bayern Munich or Real Madrid for that, or even Manchester United a couple of years back? See, whenever you talk about financial fair play, it has only creeped in recently. You talk about Liverpool and Arsenal, they have a history. And there was a time when players used to go to those clubs rather than the clubs like Manchester City or Newcastle. One way of attracting them is money. And you have to build a legacy on them. Now Manchester City is building. Likewise for Chelsea. When Chelsea was throwing money into the market, nobody was talking about them. See, when Manchester United and Arsenal were dominating, it was always a two-horse race, which later would turn out to be one-horse race. Same like with Bayern Munich. Why don't people talk about Bayern Munich? Why always there is an example of PSG? I'm not talking about my colleague, but usually people talk about PSG, run by an estate, run by a country, run by a sheikh. We talk a lot about these Arab world players, but if you talk about Manchester City specifically, and I'm being very neutral about it, see, Arsenal and Liverpool have given a run for the money to Manchester City for not 1 or 2 years, for the past 4 or 5 years. They needed a 1 or 2 good signing and they could have even won the trophy. It's all about the mentality, and I think it's high time we give respect to Manchester City. See, they were winning the league, they still brought in Haaland because they wanted to win the Champions League, because they were winning the league. What did Liverpool do in the past couple of years? They sold off money. And then bring about Arsenal. They are building a team for the future. So why do you expect them to win the title and challenge Manchester City? So Manchester City wants to win the league and they want to build a team. So if they want to build a team, their time might come, but it's time, it's a Manchester City's time.
But then Usman, their financial models are different from a team that wants to win a league.
See, if now there is, now that is what I'm talking about. See, now there are financial restrictions and that is the reason they have those 115, 116 charges. Who is stopping them from announcing the decision? Let them announce the decision. If it has taken 5, 6, 7 years, it's shame on English Premier League. It's not about Manchester City.
But that's what I'm saying, that it just leaves a bad taste if you are to strip them of their title.
That would be me as a football fan, it would be very unfair. I'm not a fan of Manchester City, but I think as a fan, if I get to know that 2015's title will be decided in the Supreme Court, then that is fun. You are making a mockery of your Premier League. It's nothing more than that.
Ali Mehdi, your take?
No, actually, I have a different point of view because this has happened in the past. You took out the Serie A titles. I believe Juventus actually were punished and they lost their titles.
That was match fixing.
Yeah, that was, match fixing. No, I understand it was match fixing, but it was decided in the courts too, for that matter too. The thing over here is, yes, I completely agree with you over here, but like I said earlier, until the decision doesn't come, which has taken so long, and that's why the Premier League is a disgrace for this.
That is
why have they taken so long for this? And the thing which is really which raises a lot of eyeballs is that the Premier League chairman, when he actually the title was to be announced, instead of going to Man City, which has dominated the Premier League, which had been the rubber stamp of the Premier League for the past 6, 7 years, or for the past 12 years, instead of going to the Etihad, he went to the Emirates Stadium, because he thought that probably there's a possibility. So there are a lot of, you could say, a lot of rumors, there are lots of things happening in the background, but one thing is for sure, we have to give credit to Manchester City until though that decision is made. They've been absolutely brilliant. Once the title charges come, then we can decide, we can talk about it.
Ali Mehdi, I don't want to discredit the Premier League or their courts, but the fact is that, the reason it's taken so long that that delay really hampers any side or their fans, and you have to give it to them. But the fact is that there is a reason why the world has a court of arbitration for sports. Let me be very honest. There are systems installed. If you can't decide this, if you're not able to process this, you give them a legal right to defend themselves. But like all of us are saying, we agree with the process and the decision. We just don't agree with the timing of it as it's coming, that, you know, they've just won another title, now you're going back. So that's the only thing we're talking about, Ali Abbas. But generally now, I think once we come back to the religious football that is being played, we've talked about Arsenal, Manchester City, you know, many teams. A relegation has also been a very interesting one this season as well. Going into the next season, what are some of the things that you would like to, I won't say predict, but analyze?
I'll
I
start.
think it'll be very interesting to see how Chelsea go about their business, because like sacking Mauricio Pochettino, I think that was a very, very, like, sorry for the strong word, but stupid decision, especially based on the second half of the season. So I mean, this feels like season 3 of the Chelsea Netflix series ever since Mr. Todd has taken over. I mean, he came in and spent £1 billion to bring in all players from all over the world, and in the second season, you know, he had to slow down a little bit, brought in Mauricio Pochettino, the good guy of football. So I think a couple of things that I'm excited, obviously seeing Arne Slot take over Liverpool. So the thing that people need to know is, like, just for you as well, Ahmed, about Liverpool, yes, it'll be impossible to replace Jurgen Klopp, but the thing about Arne Slot is Liverpool have a very good management staff in the team, right? So the sporting director, they brought in someone from Bournemouth as well recently, who was responsible for the replacing the manager, who is one of the managers of the seasons right now. So Arne Slot is coming in as a coach only. He will not have a lot of control over the transfer market. He will not have a lot of control in terms of the players that are let go, which is a good thing, because you know what Eric Ten Hag did when he came in, you know, he was basically happy to sign Jadon Sancho for 80 million or spend that much money on Antony. So you need to give the new manager some space to just work on the football and not really worry about the transfer. So those are two things I'm excited to see. How Chelsea bounce back, how Liverpool go about under Arne Slot. And I think like third, it would be if Eric Ten Hag ends up leaving, what happens with Manchester United, because a lot has been said by Sir Jim Ratcliffe coming in, and I'm excited to see that if Glazers were actually the problem, or if that's what you and Ali Mehdi were hiding behind over the last 10 years.
Interesting coming from a Liverpool post-Klopp fan, but Usman, your take on
Yeah,
this
Ali
one.
Abbas has talked a lot of points, and I agree with almost all of them. I think they have been very good points, especially that Chelsea thing. I think it's ridiculous, it's insulting, it's embarrassing, really. I didn't see that coming. Mauricio Pochettino, he's known for building teams. See, once you brought him for 2-year contract, it was written on the cards that he will utilize his 2 years and build a team. And after the first year itself, and he's taken the team into Europe, and he has finished so strongly. I think there was some confidence oozing in the side as well, and suddenly there is news that Pochettino has left. I think Chelsea has made a mockery of itself, and they are going to lose many fans as well. Talking about the next season, what I'm excited about, I am looking at the team finishing 20th, because Vincent Kompany has given a very, very good omen about it, that you can get Bayern Munich if you drop out of Premier League. So that who knows, that next year could be dropping out could be beneficial, and you could become coach or manager of Manchester United, Chelsea.
That actually means that Klopp was heading in the right direction.
Yeah, but
just on a lighter side, but that's an interesting argument.
so
I think.
I'm very much excited looking that who's going to coach Manchester United. I still believe Manchester United is a force to be reckoned with
So
in the club
you're
football.
sure that Ten Hag is
I
done?
think he will leave. I think he will leave, and by the end of this week, I think when they will lose the FA Cup to Manchester City,
No, they won't.
He had to say this. He had to jinx us.
Let's hope it becomes a cracker of a
Absolutely.
game. But I think with Thomas Tuchel in the market and not many good managers around, I think one of the clubs like Chelsea or Manchester United are going to go after him.
I don't think Chelsea are going to go with Tuchel, but I would want him to come to Manchester United on a personal note.
I think Pochettino would be a good choice for Manchester United.
I have a different opinion, but I'll keep it till the end. Ali Mehdi, you can just give us an analysis of the relegations, what you're expecting of next season,
And one
who's
point,
coming up. Yes, please.
I think Leicester City would be a good addition to Premier League next
Absolutely.
season.
Yes, Ali Mehdi.
No, when it comes to the Premier League next season, actually I'm very excited about the 3 teams which are coming up. Obviously, you may know Ipswich Town. Ipswich Town are a team which are being coached by a former Manchester United assistant coach, McKenna, who's been absolutely brilliant. He's a future coach, and he's a Manchester United supporter for a fan for so many years, and he was part of the this team under, I believe, under Ole Gunnar Solskjaer. So he's one for the future, and he's done extremely well with Ipswich. Ipswich are a town who are coming. I'm very excited to see them. They're coming back to the Premier League for the first time in 22 years. So I'm very excited about that. Leicester, we know, the 2016 champions are coming. Then obviously the other one will be a battle for between Southampton and I believe Leeds. Leeds to come into the Premier League. So I'm very excited about these three teams. But next year, what will be very interesting is that now that the fact that a team like Manchester United have actually finished 8th, how they're going to bounce back. That bounce back is going to be very interesting. Will they have Ten Hag? Won't they have Ten Hag? Liverpool, like you just mentioned, how they're going to come with Klopp not there, because it's very easy to say that and managers coming in and he's going to obviously do progress very well with the system in place, but it's not that easy. We've seen that with Manchester United, we've seen that with other teams also. It's not easy with Chelsea too. You can obviously replace Klopp and Arne Slot, but I don't think that it's going to be easy for Arne Slot. I think Arne Slot is going to have a really tough time over there. It's going to be obviously, and I hope that he does very well, but you cannot compare both the Dutch league and the Premier League too. So it's going to be very interesting. But then I have to say one thing, and I had to bring it. Chelsea are just a bunch of jokers when I say this. The fact that they actually, such a proven manager, Pochettino, did extremely well. For them to finish 6th, when they were once 13th, 14th, I must say that Todd Bowley, I have no idea.
Most absurd thing.
Most absurd
and we have seen many absurd things.
And we've seen so many absurd things over the past season. But if there's any laughing stock, it has to be Chelsea Football Club, because when a proven manager, Champions League finalist, when you remove him, then there'll be many clubs looking forward to it. And then Spurs, who have done very well, they'll want to build, and then I can't wait for next season, because Aston Villa will be in the Champions League and they'll also do very well. So we can't wait for 25, 26, 24, 25, but till then I think it's going to be an interesting summer, with especially his international.
Your comments on Ten Hag if he leaves, and what United should be going for?
Look, if Ten Hag leaves, I'm going to be extremely bitterly disappointed, because look, Ten Hag, the way he's had to deal with this last season, so much happening in the background, a takeover, 25% ownership stake coming from Ineos, Sir Jim Ratcliffe coming in, for him saying so much, Glazers going in the background too. Players, being prima donnas over there, getting injured. You have about 10 defenders, about 7-8 defenders getting injured, and then Rashford going off, saying I'm injured. So actually, about having about 10 to 14 players injured for majority of the season. I won't say that he's been a brilliant coach, but look, what more could he have done? You need the players over there. How well he did last season. When he finished 3rd, he won a cup. This season, it's just everything has not gone well. So if he's shown the door, then I have to say that Manchester United are another team who are a laughing stock.
Well, certainly. At the end, like I said, I'll keep my opinion for last. I think the only one who can save the Reds is David Moyes. No one else. There would be no one else indeed. But thank you very much, Ali Mehdi. Thank you very much, Malik Usman. Thank you very much, Ali Abbas, for your time on the show and your comments and your analysis as well. I think one thing is for sure, that once again City's dominance continues. Arsenal were ever so close. My heart goes out to Arsenal fans, especially Mr. Rizwan Haider. He was just that close into getting that title. But that fact is that, that dominance continues, and there are a lot of things that need to be put into perspective. Obviously, going into the next season, we're all very excited. We're all very hopeful. Certain things would be amended, certain changes would be made, but obviously only time will tell. On that note, from me and the entire team, until next time, it's goodbye for now.